Hi ladies, here's the final section of notes for types of speciation. We got done talking about allopatric speciation and parapatric speciation, remembering that both of those deal with some sort of extrinsic barrier that's going to prevent organisms from reproducing together. That's going to cause a speciation event. Now what we're going to do is we are going to take a look at the final two types, which are sympatric and parapatric. All right, so if we take first a look at sympatric, I would point out that this one there is no extrinsic barrier. So no geographical boundary, there's no outside source that is actually causing these populations to separate. In this case, the initial population inhabits the same geographic area. In this case, some members are going to exploit a new niche. And we mentioned before, niche is that idea of how does an organism fit into their ecosystem, that ecological community, what is their role, where do they live, what do they do, how do they fit? That is what the niche is. So in this case, we have an initial population, they're in the same area, but some members of that initial population are actually going to start taking on a new role in that same environment. Okay, I would point out that the prefix sin, if we look at Greek word roots, actually means together. And remember from previously that patris means fatherland. So here we're saying they have the same fatherland or that same geographic area. However, at this point, they're actually going to have different roles within that particular area. So in this case, in the new niche, flow of genetic material is greatly reduced between two populations. So in this case, because they are exploiting this new niche, because they have a new role, they're actually not going to be able to, for various reasons, go ahead and actually reproduce with the original population. That initial population is still doing the same things that they normally did. A small subgroup is going to have a new role in that ecological community, and because of that, they're not going to be interbreeding with the initial population. An example of this, blind naked mole rats, which are actually pretty gross looking, in the Upper Galilee Mountains possess a difference of up to 40% in their mitochondrial DNA. 40%, that is a lot, a lot. Mitochondrial DNA is slightly different because mitochondrial DNA comes all from mom. Some of these mole rats live on and above the basalt formations in the mountains. Others live on the chalk. However, they don't commingle and they don't interbreed. And that is what's really, really important here. This is what's causing our speciation. They don't mingle, they don't interbreed. At some point in their past, the two populations of mole rats stopped interbreeding despite living in the same region. So they started having differences in this role in the ecological community, and as a result, they no longer can interbreed. They don't do it. Final type that we'll talk about then is parapatric. Parapatric speciation occurs within a continuous population with no specific extrinsic barrier. Now, because there is no, again, extrinsic barrier, we actually have a slightly different phenomenon happening here. What we have happening is non-random mating. So in this instance, individuals tend to mate with those close to them. It's merely a proximity thing. They're not going to go searching over a really large geographic area to find mates. So they're actually going to specifically choose mates that are close to where they generally spend their time. So they're going to be close to them geographically. In this case, because they are kind of segregating themselves based on where they are located geographically, there are different environmental selective pressures, and those are going to act on different geographic areas. So if you have different ESP, different environmental selective pressures acting on different geographic areas, obviously this is going to cause different traits to be selected for or against. In this case, conditions drive divergence in the population. So those ESP, or the external conditions, drive the population to split. So realistically, what this looks like, if we were looking maybe again at our map of South America in case you were wondering, perhaps that we have organisms that occupy this entire coast, maybe this whole east coast. That could be something like birds. It could be really truly anything. There's a lot of organisms that could be across an entirely large range. And if that were true, organisms that live right here are unlikely to travel all the way up here to mate. And as a result, they have different environments. Those environments are going to select for different traits, and it causes a divergence or a speciation event. So that's all for the types of speciation. Stay tuned for more evolution.